those 50 acres as being under study. It's been under study since 2008 because at the time there was direction to do a study on the property to determine what was going to happen to it. We have left that recommendation because it's our understanding that there will be a separate planning process for that as requested by City Council. And that process, as the city manager noted in one of your public meetings, that we will be looking to an outside third party of subject matter experts that will come out and work with the community as well as our council members and other staff to look at the property, to understand what the archaeological survey says, to hear everybody's wants and needs and figure out various ways we can achieve that. So we want some additional information before a decision is made.
Right. Well, you don't say what direction, who gave the direction to put it under study?
I wasn't here in 2008.
It was adopted.
It was adopted like that.
Policy in 2008, and then framework for the future was adopted. So that would be city council at that time.
Okay.
That was Mayor Joe Frank, was it?
Yes, I understand Joe Frank was the mayor at the time.
Yeah.
And of course, he's come out recently supporting development there.
Yes.
And I also understand it was about that time that the planning task force for the park was dismissed, and there was a plan that came out, proposal. It wasn't adopted, but there was a proposal for it.
I understand what you're saying, and I absolutely respect your
Right.
passion for this, but this is not the forum to
Okay.
decide what's going to happen on that. That decision has been made that there's going to be a separate planning process. When that occurs and the council makes a decision on
Right.
how to proceed, whatever is adopted will become an addendum to the comprehensive plan. It will become a
Right.
park, and that would go away based on whatever decision is made. So
Right.
there will be a separate public process for that.
Okay, I encourage other people to speak up now too
But
and
we do encourage you
and do the
to
comment cards as
Put
well.
your comments in. Do we have any questions about the process, the themes, anything? Yes, ma'am.
Well, before you jump off of that, what would be the process, you said the separate planning process, you're taking out this part of the city, the property, and it's not going to be included in this comprehensive plan, it's a separate by itself?
No, that's not what we're saying. The park, that Riverview Farm Park is still there. The city farm property is still there. It's recognized. We talk about it in the plan. But the proposal is not to put a specific land use designation on it right now.
I thought it was zoned park.
This is land use. It has nothing to do with zoning. This is our land use designation.
Oh, I don't know, I just thought that zoning kind of referenced what should be used.
It does. It provides the standards for development based on the zoning designation, but it has no land use designation right now. You have to have a land use designation on the property.
Wow.
It is identified as
So
under
what's
study.
well, and I was just wondering about having a third party look at this property and decide when
Let me explain.
And do you
When I
have a timeline for that, when this third party is going to be looking at it and when the city council
Yes,
expects a plan?
yes. Let me answer the question.
Okay.
The third party that I referred to is actually a team of subject matter experts from the American Planning Association. These are people that get together from various areas in the country. They work with various communities across the country and across the world. They're experts in various topics, and they will be coming to the city. We are submitting an application for that. What we've been asked to do is to hold off on submitting the application because the archaeological survey needs to occur. We need to know what is underground first, because that's part of the existing condition. We need to understand that. So once that is well underway and we have a time frame for when that survey will be completed, we will then submit our application and then work with the American Planning Association and their professional team to then schedule coming out, seeing the property. They'll do that first, and then they will come out for up to a week, I believe it is, working with the various stakeholders, the residents, the city council members, other people of interest, to get everybody's input and then work on developing some options to be considered. So I don't have a definite time frame. It really depends on when that survey is
The
completed.
archaeological survey in the works?
Yes.
Good to know.
Okay. So any non-city farm questions, comments?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I could be misinformed, but it looks like to me that the southeast end of the city is being continued to be shortchanged and treated like a stepchild. I looked around at all these maps, and I didn't see a lot of attention being given to the southeast end of the city. I grew up in the Parkview areas, and although I no longer live there, I still have connections there. And I think it's time to give that area of the city more attention. They've been treated like a stepchild since Newport News and Warwick consolidated in 1958. So that's been 59 years. Thank you.
It may not have jumped out on some of the boards at you, but in the document, we do specifically talk about the Southeast community, about implementing the recommendations from the Southeast Community Plan. And in fact, the city, the Economic Development Authority, the Housing Authority have been taking actions over the last 5 years and have put millions of dollars of investment into the Southeast community. And in addition, we received a grant from the Department of Housing and Urban Development last summer to do a transformation plan for approximately 1 square mile area. I don't know if you've heard of the Choice neighborhood.
No, but I'm familiar with the Chestnut Avenue and Jefferson Avenue streetscape upgrade. Of course, the Brooks Crossing development.
This is a little bit beyond that. The Choice Neighborhood Transformation Plan is actually going to look at the area that is bounded by 39th Street, Marshall, the Chase Bag property, the waterfront,
Oh,
and I-664. It happens to be the area of the city that we feel is in most need. So we are working with all of the residents, with business owners, property owners, all of the service organizations, anybody that has any interest in being part of the process. We've been working since late last summer, early fall. We have various committees filled with residents and others working on housing, people, and neighborhood topic areas. And we will have a draft transformation plan by the end of this year, because we're required to submit it to HUD at the end of the year. And then we hope to have that before the City Council in the spring, because we have to have it completed for HUD by June of next year. It is a plan that comes from the community. It's based on their needs, their desires. This is not a city-driven plan, rather it's driven by the residents themselves. It's visionary, but it's also implementable. That's a funny word. It can be implemented. It won't happen overnight. These things take time, but it is a commitment from the city and our partner organizations that we will continue to work with the community to revitalize it.
Incidentally, I was introduced to the Choice Initiative, Neighborhood Initiative plan the other evening at John Marshall when we had a meeting down
Oh,
there.
so you
So
attended the...
that was my first
Okay.
introduction, so I stand corrected. on
Okay,
that.
no, that's
Thank you very
fine.
much.
That's fine. Yes, ma'am.
Does that area include the homes that are near the coal piers, COAL?
Dickerson and Harbor Court, Harbor Homes are no longer there. Are you talking about the public housing that was there?
Yes, that's no longer there now.
That's been demolished since a few years ago. But it does include that site, and part of the planning process for our choice neighborhood is to identify opportunities to use that site in a different way, not as residential, but potentially as something that supports employment. We did have a market study done as part of this process, and we're very pleased, I think, with the results. It shows that there is a lot of opportunity in the community, so we think we'll have a good plan moving forward. Yes, ma'am.
Britt, I heard you talk about where you're going to continually report out each year, I think, for how much progress was done and so on. But as far as accountability is concerned, is that just at the discretion of the council or the individual department? I mean, I see, you know, okay, well, this goes to this department, it either needs to be funded or it doesn't, but can you talk a little bit more about accountability and how, because the plan is really just a guideline, right? So could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, what our intent is, and we're still continuing to develop exactly what that report is going to look like. First, we need an adopted plan. But our intent is to work with the various departments to understand what their focus has been on the previous year. So it'll be that, but I think at some point we do want to get to the point where we have measures. We're not at that point yet with this. I think that would be a next step in the next update of the plan. Yes, sir?
There seems to be a relationship, or at least as I understood what you said. The comprehensive plan, once it's approved, is going to be a seed document or the CIP to help, right?
Right.
The CIP, as it's currently structured or formatted, is a little out of date when you compare it to what you've done with this new document. And the money and the lines, they're departmentalized. They seem to be focused on the mission of that part of the city's capability. And I'm wondering, do you see that the creation of the 9 planning areas and then the rest of the city, which would be 10, driving a need to change the format of the CIP?
That's a good question. I mean, there is a, part of what's done, there's actually, and Claudia could probably tell you more because she's very active in that process. Claudia Cotton is our manager of current planning. She's very actively engaged in the CIP process, which we're getting ready to start again. But there is an area in the document, and there's a lot of background information, where every department who's putting in a request has to identify how this implements the comprehensive plan. So that's in there. I don't know if format needs to be changed, but Claudia?
Right, and it also speaks to each investment and how it implements the strategic priorities that the
Right.
city council has set. So in some sense, it's kind of connecting investment to what the goals are. And my guess would be that we'll probably work with them to also identify which theme that the investment would help accomplish.
Yes, sir.
I just would add, I thought it was a great question.
Yeah, it
Before
is.
where I said, you know, Joe, your question was a good question, but I think, over time, it seems to me that you would try to align the CIP and the thoughts and ideals of the CIP and mesh it with this, mesh the comprehensive plan ideals with the CIP as you move forward. Obviously, you can't just take the CIP and abandon it and all of a sudden say, hey, let's go do everything on the comprehensive plan. But I mean, it's a great question. It deserves to be meticulously thought out and molded into what we do. I think it's a great idea.
I hereby volunteer to mold.
So
Thanks for the time.
you're going to volunteer to mold, and I have to throw you a party.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything.
You asked for a
Just
party
last
last time. Joe's been to all 3 of our open houses. So the first one, he asked me to throw him a party, so it's on my list.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
This may not be a problem, but the city recently had it seems a very positive move to acquire some 20 acres of land on the southeast community.
Yes.
Now, in the way of examples of all these plans and structures, how does something like that, a positive move, how does that fit in with a previous plan? I mean,
Sheila will step in and help me, but I'll tell you what I know. So the Economic Development Authority purchased what was the former Chase packaging site. It's a little bit, I think it's closer to 27 acres I think I was told about 6 of them are underwater, so about 20 potentially buildable acres. It is actually in our Choice neighborhood area. The city has long looked at that property. Many years ago, it was in the framework for the future, so that was what was directing that purchase. Yes. And now that we're in the Choice Neighborhood Transformation Plan process, what will happen, the Economic Development Authority intends to hold on to that property and let the process determine what the residents, what the community would like to see on that property, and then we'll go from there for implementation. So it fits in. It was identified a long time ago. Did I say something wrong?
Well,
No.
but
No, okay, okay.
I think from the dates that you've given us of when you come here, you can't claim responsibility for it.
Yeah, were you the person that asked me if it doesn't look good in 20 years, will I be to blame? Yes. That was you. It's all my fault. So did that answer?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank
So
you, thank you.
it was something that's been on the
The
books for a long
gentleman
time.
here had a,
Yeah.
wanted to know what was
Yeah.
going on there.
Absolutely. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, sir.
One of my questions, it seems like we're overly detailed on the zoning map they have there. of-
Not a zoning map.
I'm sorry, the
Land
planning
use.
map of what you, this has like all these different zones of residential, of, why couldn't we have something much more general in terms of this could be like a low impact use, so you could have housing or low impact commercial, and then that could be the plan, just so the landowners could do whatever they want. I know before you were talking about, there might be some issues with roads and waterways, but if you have something that's in the same general use, you could maybe even have some overlap in there.
We do have a land use designation that allows for mixed use. So that you have options in that designation. Part of what we're looking to do with our couple of our planning opportunity areas are actually areas identified in the framework for the future, for future transportation, transit-oriented development. So when we go do the specific area plans, that is something that we would look at. How do the land use designations need to be slightly different to allow a little bit more flexibility to get the type of development that we think we need in order to support future transit or being more walkable?
Sure, I was just looking at it, it just seemed like it was hyper-specific in what the plan was for all the designations, and if, like, a lot of urban blight seems to be caused by property owners not able to develop things without going through City Hall and taking them many months or years to develop things, and they just give up and don't develop it, and the city does not get developed because planning and zoning cannot create jobs, but it can prevent them.
Downtown is a good example of where we do have mixed use, where you have the opportunity to do different types of uses. And in other parts of the city, as it develops, because you have to remember Newport News is pretty much built out. You don't have a lot of vacant land. And look at what's happening in the room with the one piece of property where we said it was just under study, and it doesn't have an identified land use on it. So you're talking about areas where people right now have an investment, and to identify it as just open, with them not buying into it that way, would cause too much conflict. You need to identify land uses that you know will not change, such as the yellow that you see on the map, all of the residential, that's going to be residential. Where you have large swaths of land that's vacant, such as in view, such as downtown, that's an opportunity to do something different and to do mixed use. But it would be very difficult to identify, to just leave it open throughout the city without having without a resident or an owner having some security and knowing that they can do something with that property.
Okay, well, it just seems like the planning and the zoning prevents the owner from doing things that they may want to do.
Well, it's health, safety, and welfare, and it's also protection of property values. You have competing interests when you're looking at land use, and that competing interest, it has to gel. So there are some places where you are not going to want to have it open like that, and there are some places where you will. And those are areas that you want to see redeveloped, but you want the people who are living there to have some say into how that redevelopment is going to occur. And if they want to have something that's open, then that's something that we can identify it that way. Downtown, and I continue to say, is a prime example of being able to do whatever you want to do in there, and we're not getting that type of interest.
Yes, ma'am.
An easy one, on the sustainable city, we refer to responsibly use our resources. What are our resources? I'm thinking you're thinking natural resources. What are
Cultural resources are people, all of those different.
So a sustainable city, ways we can responsibly use our resources to meet the needs of the present without compromising the needs of the future. A lot of times you hear that referred to like clean air, clean water, but what are our natural resources that you're talking about?
Water, water being a big one.
Okay.
Basically, our historic resources, but more so the environmental in this case.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, water is a good one. Are there any more? I mean, it's trees, or trees and green space. Is green space a natural resource?
Yeah.
You know, we think about natural resources, a lot of times we think about minerals, we think of, things that we don't have in Newport News.
But for those that we do, that's.
Well, I just don't want this to be a, just a feel-good area.
Understand.
I do want us to really
Well,
work toward.
I encourage you to read that section, and if you feel that it doesn't address that, then please give us some suggestions, some comments. Yes, sir?
The last observation from me,
Okay.
until the next time. I fear that in the not-too-distant future, instead of having 3 sections of the city competing with each other for resources, which in my mind is money, we're going to wind up with, in this case, 10 places in the city where the neighbors get together and feel like they're being left out of the honeypot. So instead of 3 with a fairly large group of people, you're going to have 10 groups of people carping at you over money. And I just know one of them's going to be Denver.
Well, what I can say to that is
Yes.
that,
What's different? You think
What you trying to say about us?
so Joe, what I can say about that is that, and anybody who's participating right now in the Choice Neighborhood Transformation Plan process would probably support this. Change or investments aren't always about money. Sometimes they're about people. And just taking various actions, working together, collaborating with the existing resources that are available to make something better, whether it's a service, whether it's a site, somebody adopting, a corner or park, whatever it may be. So it's not always about money. So I think there are some areas in the city that it isn't all about money. Yeah, there will be some investments needed.